Can you imagine walking around with a giant tire stuck around your neck for 2 whole years? This isn't a cartoon. This is the incredible true story of a wild elk in Colorado who became famous for the worst possible reason. For 2 long years, this magnificent animal was spotted wandering the mountains with a heavy car tire strangling its neck. Can you even picture the daily struggle? Every meal, every drink of water, every step, a constant heavy burden. Wildlife officials were getting desperate calls from concerned locals, but this was no easy rescue. The elk was elusive, powerful, and terrified of humans. How could they possibly get close enough to help without causing more harm? The clock was ticking. As the months turned into years, the situation grew more and more dire. The elk was seen getting tangled in fences, struggling to move through dense forests, and constantly fighting off other bulls who saw its strange necklace as a weakness. Experts feared the worst. The tire could get caught on a branch, leading to a slow and agonizing end. Or, as the elk grew, the tire would become a literal chokehold, suffocating it. The public watched with bated breath, flooding social media with sightings and prayers. It was a race against time, a real-life wildlife drama playing out in the Rocky Mountains. Wildlife officers Travis and Scott were determined to end this animal's suffering. They had tried everything. They'd attempted to tranquilize the elk from a distance 4 times over the past week alone. But the dense terrain and the elk's wariness made it nearly impossible. They knew they needed a perfect shot, a moment where everything aligned. The stakes were incredibly high. One wrong move, and the elk could bolt, potentially injuring itself further, or the tranquilizer could have a negative effect. They were exhausted, but they refused to give up. They owed it to this animal to see it through to the end. Then, one evening, they got the break they were waiting for. A resident spotted the elk in their neighborhood, a more open area where a rescue attempt might finally be possible. Travis and Scott rushed to the scene. The community held its breath. This was it. As dusk settled, they located the elk, a massive bull weighing over 600 pounds. Travis aimed his tranquilizer dart gun, his heart pounding. He had to account for the distance, the wind, and the elk's powerful muscles. He took a deep breath and fired. Bullseye! The dart hit its mark perfectly. Now, a new challenge began. The tranquilizer would take a few minutes to work, and in that time, the groggy, confused animal could still run for miles. The officers had to keep a close watch, following it carefully until it finally lay down. Once the elk was safely sedated, they moved in. The sight was even worse, up close. The tire was filled with wet pine needles, mud, and debris, adding at least 10 pounds of extra weight. They realized they couldn't just slip the tire off over its massive antlers. There was only one option. They had to cut the tire itself, but there was a problem. The steel bead inside the tire's rim was too tough for their knives. They needed a power saw. Time was precious. They had to work fast before the sedative wore off. Another officer raced to get a saw. With the whole neighborhood watching in hushed silence, they carefully positioned the saw. Sparks flew as they sliced through the thick rubber and steel. It was a tense, nerve-wracking moment. One slip could injure the animal terribly. They had to be precise, steady, and quick. Finally, with a last powerful cut, the tire split open. They pulled the 2 halves apart, and for the first time in 2 years, the elk's neck was free. The relief was overwhelming. They checked the animal over miraculously. Aside from a bit of rubbed-off hair and a small raw spot, the elk was in surprisingly good condition. The weight was literally lifted from its shoulders. After administering a reversal drug to wake it up, the officers stepped back. A few moments later, the elk staggered to its feet, shook its massive head as if in disbelief, and trotted off into the darkness, finally free. It was a victory for compassion, a testament to the tireless dedication of these wildlife heroes. This incredible rescue reminds us of the profound impact we have on the natural world and our responsibility to protect it. Thanks to the skill and perseverance of these officers, this majestic creature gets a second chance at life. What an amazing story of hope and determination. If you were moved by this rescue, please like and subscribe for more incredible stories from the wild. Thanks for watching.